Here is one part of the explanation of all the big money we spend and why maybe reforms are not put through as quickly as they should. The economic hope all French people share is, but we have a lot of children, we are very rich, and the discourse you hear very often is, the Germans may be very good now, but they will decline very quickly, they don't have children. We have a lot of children. Okay, this is the age pyramid of France. If you compare it to the Japanese one you have all in your mind, you will see it's very, very positive. I mean, it is not a pyramid, it is a sort of, it's going to be this, but it's not this. So this is the great economic hope. It's somehow forgetting that children cost a lot of money, and it may be also forgetting to calculate who is producing most of the children. There is maybe a problem. And, but anyway, it's a heavy tendency. Once the children are born, you have future women to make other children, and if the children are not born, 20 years later or 30 years later, you don't have women to make the children. So now I was asked very often in Japan, but how do you achieve such high fertility? Well, here's a recipe. First of all, France had a fertility policy since a long, long time, mainly for military reasons. They imagined they lost the wars with Germany because they didn't have enough soldiers to get killed. But the more modern policy is there's a lot of child benefits. And it's basically the child family allocation, which you call in English child benefit, is universal, but it starts only with the second child, but it goes on for more than 20 years. It can go up to 26 if your child is studying. There was a very shy reform in 2015. As we lack money, President Holland thought we could cut this for rich families. They don't need this money, and it's not such a big money for them. And then there was a huge protest, even from poor people. We can't do that because all the children are the same. All the children have to have the same money. And it's a sort of normative principle that this has to be universal. And there was also the idea, if the rich people don't get it, they will not support it anymore, and it will interrupt the consensus on this universal allocation. So finally, they did a tiny little shy thing. The benefit is still universal, but you get 50% less if you earn more than 6,000 euros a month, which is so more than university professors can earn. And you get only, it is cut by 75, you get only a third, only a fourth of the money if you earn more than 8,000. So really have to earn a lot of money before. So it concerns very few people. So this is how the normative principle was preserved, how the policy realistic principle, we need money, was sort of adapted to the normative principle of it has to be for everybody. There's a huge income tax relief when you have children. Your tax is divided by parts for each child. And the result is that in 2014, we reached that only half of the households pay income tax in France. So if you have only half of the people paying income tax, it's a problem somewhere. And then you cannot really merge the general contribution with the income tax. Now then you have lump sum payments for children at each birth for everybody. And of course, free medical care for pregnancy and for anything connected with children for 1 year after birth. And you have allocations, something like school start. Every year the school starts, all the families who have children get a check to buy the school things for the children. And it's according to your income, but it's sort of, differences are little. Normally, if you don't have a huge income, or if you have a smaller income, you get about 500 euros per child once a year just for the school beginning. And all this is, of course, a little bit more for poorer families. All this. The most important is maybe not money, as the German example shows. It's full daycare for babies, full-time schools. France is very well equipped with this. You can have a baby and after 2 months you start working and your baby is looked after. It's not a basic. There may be places where there's a little bit of lack, but it's not a major policy problem. The institutions are there, the professionals are there, and the money is provided and it's all organized. There has been tentatives, it was not yet accepted, but it may come, that school should be compulsory from 2 years onwards for reasons of equality, that every little child should be sent to some institution and not just stay with mother at home. There's another very important point, pension credits per child for the women. You can now share it not share it, you can choose for father or mother, but every time a couple has a child, 2 years are added to the affiliation period of retirement, and they choose whether father or mother will have it. There's a problem with this because it was for women only until a father went to a law court and complained for discrimination, and he won the process at the European law court, not at the French law court, it's the European one. And now people choose, and what they generally do, and they have to choose for the first child, and they can't change it. When they're very much in love and have the first child, they choose the one who earns most, and that's the man. And then 5 years later is a divorce, and the woman will never get these 2 years back. So it's a very bad thing, I think, for women. There is a very important and very strong work-family conciliation policy. Women can work, and employers are used to accept that the woman suddenly doesn't turn up because she will telephone and say, my baby is ill, I'm sorry, can't come. This is accepted. So, and there are many rules around what has to be done, etc., and all the German example will show that only money will not produce children. So these are the benefits in France for children. If you have the first, you don't get anything, just a lump sum for birth. If you have 2, you get 130 euros per month. For 3, 200 and something. For 4 children, you get 460, and for each further child, 170 euros are added. And according to the age of the children, once they reach 14 years of age, here, up to 20 or more if they study, they get an extra 86 for each child, except the oldest, because he is the first and he is not entitled to anything. In Germany, the benefits are the double, start with the first child, which gets already 190, when the 6 or 7 children, they are at 800, 900 euros, nearly a salary, but there are not many children in Germany because there's insufficient daycare and not enough reconciliation policy. So if you know welfare state literature, you may know that you may have noted a contradiction, a major one. Child policy in France, that's the French paradox here. The French policy does not really correspond to what was worked out in the literature as being good for having a lot of children. Because the child policy in France takes up a lot of money. Now it was calculated for the first time, it's a very new figure. Outside school and the educational system, which costs a lot of money, it's 4% of the GDP, just the allocations I told you about. But there's no welfare support for young people. They don't get anything. All the welfare starts at the age of 26 or 24. Before it goes to anything that's for housing, minimum income, unemployment benefits, it's for the elder ones, and it's the young people who don't have work. So they depend on their families. Before 25, it's 25, welfare goes through the family. And that is very much different in the Scandinavian countries who give welfare to autonomy. They favor the autonomy of young people very early and give money rather to young people than to old people or to the families. And the French model is not at all this. It is for children and for the family, who is a framework for the child. And it's a birth policy. It's not a policy for young people. That's a contradiction. And that may be one part of the explanation for the unemployment of young people.